Hello everyone and welcome. In this video we'll be covering how to repair the water heater that's not able to light so that it can produce some hot water. I've done a video similar to this, but it was a different water heater. It was a Bradford White, and this one here is a Rheem water heater. Although they both operate in a similar manner, they do have some components that are different. And this particular one here, this Rheem, it'll throw you for a loop if you're not familiar with it. At first, I wasn't going to put this video out because I felt, there was quite a few water heater repairs out there on, water heaters not relighting. But one of my colleagues ran into a problem, and he had the same water heater, and he called me, and he said, "Hey man, I've done everything I could to get this water heater to working. I replaced the pilot assembly, the gas control valve, nothing." And that moment I asked him, I said, "Hey, what kind of water heater are you working with?" And he told me it's a Rheem. And right away I knew the problem. And I asked him, did you see a glass tubing in the combustion chamber? He said, "No, I didn't see that." I said, "Well, you may not have it. Probably most likely it burst, and you'll probably see glass fragments on the bottom of it." But anyway, he was surprised at the fact of that. So I did go over there to give him a hand, and so happened the supply house gave him the parts that he needed, but he didn't realize that the little glass tubing that held a little oil in it was the problem. And when that little glass tube pops, it holds the device in place. Once it's popped, it releases that device, and that device shuts down the water heater. And that's only when the water heater is overheated and the burner is starting to burn out wide. Well, anyway, this is what we're going to do. First of all, we're going to remove the cover for the pilot assembly, and the burner. And I guess I was talking at the beginning, and you probably didn't notice the star wrench that I'm using, and it was a T20, I believe, the size that's required to remove these screws. A Rheem water heater. Wrench. The others use the small little nut drivers. And they do make these star wrenches where they do have a handle just like the screwdriver, and it's a lot easier to work with. But this is pretty handy, and I keep all different sizes with this little setup that I have here. And one of the first things we want to do once we remove our burner is kind of examine the inside of the combustion chamber. We want to make sure that combustion chamber is clear of debris and dust, because if you have quite a bit of dust accumulated, it'll cause problems and keep your water heater from lighting, because it will remove the oxygen from the air. It'll kind of smother it, and of course if you have any flame, it's going to need oxygen. So we want to keep as much oxygen flowing into the combustion area as we possibly can. And in this case, the oxygen is coming from up under the bottom of the water heater. You can't see it, but it is. And this water heater here is in the attic. I know a lot of you people out there are not familiar with water heaters being in the attic, unless you do live down south where the temperatures are warm. There are issues with water heaters being in the attic. I mean, the idea of having them up there, it's pretty good because of the energy that it saves. But at the same time, if your attic is not vented properly, you will have issues because you'll have insufficient air getting into the chambers, and this will choke the fire. Like I was saying, the insufficient air in the attic will it will cause the flames up underneath to choke out. And what I'm doing here is just kind of taking a little pin, and there's some little holes. I'm trying to poke the holes through the where some of this oil from the little crystal that popped in there, just kind of clearing it up and free some of the holes up. And below there will be a description or URL to a website explaining issues with water heaters in the attic. I'd recommend you probably check that out if you have a water heater in the attic, and you'll have a clearer understanding of water heaters in the attic. Right there, this little device I'm pulling out that I'm moving around, this is the device that holds the small kind of glass crystal that holds the safety device in place. And again, once that the glass is broken from being overheated, it will shut the water heater down immediately. It's probably one of them, I'd say probably best safety device that I've seen, because it works so quick. But it throws a lot of plumbers off, because we're used to a lot of the standard ones where the safety device is built in on the side or in the gas control valve itself. switch back there, you can see me pushing down on it. And what I'm doing is putting the safety device back in place. And I'm going to have to squeeze down on that rod back there and spin it around to where it will lock in place. And now the device will be set and ready for the water heater to operate. And it is kind of tricky, especially when you're working in the attic, and sometimes you don't have a lot of space. People have a lot of stuff around, so it's kind of, and I'm right-handed, and this is if I was left-handed, it'd be a little easy right now. And I am trying to position this flashlight in the best position so that I can give you the best view that I can give you of the spot where this safety device goes. This is the safety device with the little glass tubing. It looks like a little fuse. There's a closer look. Here's a picture of it. That glass tube holds a little oil. I'm not sure what the substance is. You can see on the previous one where you see this is not the same as the one that I'm working on now, but you seen the shard glass that was laying out across the deck. Okay, now we've got it in place. This is what it looks like once it's in place. This is a close-up view. This is a picture that I got off the internet. And now it's time to put the burner assembly, the pilot assembly, everything back that goes into the combustion chamber. This right here, oh man, I love this. This was a great idea that Rheem came up with the gasket seal to install back in place. I'm going to show you let me show you more of a closer look where you can see the small little magnets. See the little magnets right there? Okay. So once you flip that over and flip it in place, those magnets will hold it right in place, and you don't really worry about it moving around on you. So I thought that was pretty clever. See, it holds it right in place. If you've done water heaters before, you know that sometimes putting this little plate back in place can be a little difficult, but they've made this pretty easy with the magnetic gasket. It makes it a lot easier. It holds it in place, so you don't have to fight trying to hold the gasket in place and screw the plate down. And by the way, the camera I was using um, it ran out of memory, and so now I'm recording the rest of this with my phone. So I apologize if the quality's not there. And right here is where we're connecting the igniter. And this fat tube right here, that's the gas tube. Well, I'm sorry, back to the small copper looking one. This is the thermocoupling that goes into the combustion chamber. And the thermocoupling, the way it works, once you get the small pilot part lit, the burner, it burns against the thermocoupling, and after a minute or so, that small thermocoupling starts to generate a small amount of electricity, and that small current operates that gas control valve. And this bigger tubing here is for the main gas line, where the main burner, all the flames are coming out at. And this tube, the last tube to go in, this is the tube that goes to the pilot light itself. And it's just a small amount of gas that goes there here to keep the pilot lit. turning the gas to the water heater on right here. And this is the pilot button that we're going to hold down, and we're going to hit the igniter switch right here on the right hand side. And right now I'm holding it down just to kind of get some of the air out of the line and get some gas down into the chamber area, because as long as there's air in here, it's going to be very difficult to light. So we're going to get the air out of here. Now there's going to be a few times that I'm going to cut the light off in the attic, the flashlight, and that's only so that you can see the pallet, the igniter. It makes it a little easier to light the water heater, at least to me it does, because you can see the when it's lit. And I'm hitting the igniter, but I'm not showing you the spark. There you go. There's the spark. Okay. And now we need to give it a little gas. Now that you have seen the igniter ignite. Okay, now you can see the pilot is lit, and if you look real close, well, you can't see it now, but if you look real close, you can see it's burning up against the thermal coupling. And I guess I've held this down long enough, and it should be ready to turn on the main burners and start heating the water heater up. And once that gets to going, there we go. We're looking at about 30-45 minutes for the water to heat up and be ready to use. I hope you enjoyed the video and hope that it was very helpful. And if you have a Bradford White water heater, I have a video on that also. Again, same operations, different components. Thank you for watching.